So the campaign did not officially end until the beginning of March. So my political campaign lasted longer than the first round of Peter and I's relationship. Anyway, but something very special did happen before my campaign ended. And I'll talk more about the campaign ending in the next video, but I want to talk about the very special thing that happened. We are now at the beginning of 2022. So January 10th, I was walking around downtown San Francisco, around the Embarcadero, and very close to Sue Bierman Park, and you'll see why I say that. So Sue Bierman Park, which Davis and Clay, not that any of that matters or means anything to you all, but it also helps jog my memory a little bit. But for those of you who do know San Francisco, right? Embarcadero, Sue Bierman Park, Davis and Clay. I'm crossing the street and I see something in the crosswalk, and it absolutely broke my heart. What was sitting in the crosswalk? A parrot that had been killed, obviously. I don't know what killed the parrot, but it had obviously been hit by a car at least once, and it just broke my heart. So, before I say anything else, one, San Francisco has a flock of wild parrots. They're our official mascot. I am absolutely obsessed by them. I have been my entire life. That's them. Two, this should probably have been one. Animals have played a huge role in my experience for as long as I can remember. I have not eaten meat since I was 9. Some of the most important relationships that I have formed on this planet in this lifetime have been with animals. I truly and wholeheartedly believe that animals are angels on earth, and they are brought into our lives for a very, very, very special reason. I grew up with every pet you've seen at a pet store. And as a matter of fact, up until very recently, my parents always had some pet. I will talk more about this a little bit later, but I want to at least introduce that. When I talk about the parrot in the crosswalk, I want to at least preface it with this. Again, ask anybody. There's a reason I wanted to be a veterinarian. There's a reason I started a private pet, like the first business I started was a pet care business. There's a reason my first book is titled A Real San Francisco Story with Pets. I'm obsessed with animals. I think that they're the most amazing, exciting things that we have on this planet. They are pure and unconditional love and energy, and they have taught me so much. I can't say enough good things about what the animals have brought me, and the relationship and the obligation and the responsibility that I feel to the animals. I do refer capital animals. That's how I refer to the animals in the collective animal kingdom. Okay, so there's a point to this story, I promise. So I find this parrot in the crosswalk. It's one of the wild flocks. It's part of the wild flock that Sue Bierman Park is actually at the time where they roosted. That park has changed because we had a huge storm that destroyed a bunch of the trees in that park. But that park, the flock has gotten so big, I won't give all the backstory now, but the flock has basically gotten so big since they were first spotted in San Francisco in the late 80s that they don't travel together during the day anymore. Every night they all tend to sleep in the same park. It's actually super cute. So again, I'm obsessed with these birds. I found one dead in the crosswalk. I almost started crying. So I scooped the bird up. I put like a piece of paper or something in between, right? Lovely birds, don't want mites. And I'm thinking I can't just leave the bird here. So I walk over to Parakeet Park. You'll see where that name comes from shortly. And I walk up the hill to the little park. Did you know that San Francisco has just under 300 parks? Anywhere you are in the city, you're within a 10-minute walk of a park. So I've always been so amazed by the fact that Sue Bierman Park specifically, it literally looks like like a little cliff and a little park, but it's like in the middle of a concrete jungle, like just boom. Anyway, so I go up, I do like a little, I don't know, I have my little moment. I dig a hole and I bury the parrot, and I put a little stick there to kind of mark the spot, right? So it's not like an unmarked grave. So I leave the park and I'm sitting at a bench just outside of it. And I think this is actually when I started crying. I think this is actually when I'm like getting the relief out. It's gonna sound weird. It's gonna sound maybe depressing, but it's true. No matter, it's the truth. I do find relief. I have at times found relief through crying. It is what it is. So I'm sitting on the bench, having my little moment, trying to compose myself before I go back to the real world. And who do I see out of the corner of my eye but Michelle crossing the street? I was so struck that I got up, I ran over, I called her name, and I remember I ran in the middle of the street, and then I called her name, and she turned, and we give each other this look, and the next thing she said, she's like, well, come on, get out, don't stand there in the middle of the street, come on, come over here. And it was the most beautiful reunion. It was as though nothing had ever happened. She caught me up on all the tea at her job. She caught me up on the developments in her life. And interestingly enough, there was a new man in her life. Here's what's crazy is I remember I told y'all earlier that I very much manifested Peter's specific characteristics, at least 2 of them. So what's interesting enough is that Peter's real name was the name of the man who Michelle was originally manifesting when I ended up meeting Peter and then we started dating. Michelle, I'm sorry. I think I've already told you this, but I'm sorry in advance. I always kind of got the sense that Michelle was a little butthurt that was the name that she was manifesting, and then it ended up working for me. However it ended. I mean, girl, it didn't work out. You're still with your man. I'm not. Anyway, I'm getting it. So anyway, she put out 2 very specific characteristics, like I did, a little bit different from mine, but she did, and she got what she asked for. Folks, manifesting works, and you don't always end up with a scrub like I did. Anyway, that was her most recent update. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, that's so cool. That's so interesting how that worked out, because remember, I was so worried that Michelle would be by herself. And I guess what apparently ended up happening is that this guy and her crossed paths like a couple months after we went our separate ways, that we ended our friendship. And then I guess they got COVID together and ended up quarantining together, and here we are. Like I said, this is now January 10th, 2022. So I was over the moon excited that Michelle was back in my life, especially because we had a huge destination trip planned for her 30th birthday. I'm getting ahead of myself, but 3 very special things happened on that trip that happened later this year. Her 30th birthday, and all that she wanted was an all-white party. So I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a few things that happen before we have our destination birthday event later on that year. But Michelle was back in my life, and I could not be happier because I missed her desperately, and our relationship and our friendship has never been stronger. So in the next video, I will talk about the first time that I ever visited Washington, D.C., the huge surprise that was waiting for me. Actually, 2 huge surprises that were waiting for me. So I will talk about that in the next video.